Go live. Hello, hello, hello. Today, manifestation's secret ingredient. Probably a little curious. Yeah, so am I. Okay, here we go. So, when you think about manifestation, when people talk about it, if I were to say, what comes to mind when you think about manifestation? Some would say, or what's similar? Well, how about the law of attraction? Isn't that kind of the same thing? Yeah, we're going to talk about that one. And what else? Well, there's another kind of hidden ingredient there. And I think it comes from Apple, the iPhone, that I in iPhone. We'll get to that. There's the Ed Milet, if you've heard of him, he's an awesome guy. But he has a book called The Power of One More. There's a little ingredient hidden in that one too. There's the rule of one. And now I want to show you kind of the common thread that runs through all of this stuff. What I'm calling today as the secret ingredient. An ingredient that I believe is kind of right there. It's kind of hidden in plain sight. It's maybe some other people have talked about it. I don't know, but it's fascinating when you look at it. You're like, oh my gosh, it's there. So here are those things I just mentioned right there in the notes. And let's start off with the law of attraction. So if you look close, I think I already gave it away with my little lines there, but if you look close, you'll notice that attraction, ATTRACTION, right? But what's in there? Look at the last five letters of attraction. What do you see? Action, right? It's right in there. Literally ACTION, it's in there. Remember that. Action is sitting right inside the law of attraction. Now let's go out and go back a few letters or two more letters. And what do you see here? You see TRA, right? You see TRACT, traction. So the last five letters are action. I'm sorry, the last whatever that is. Yeah, five letters are action. But then if you go back and you look back two more, you see traction. So what does that mean? What it means to me, and it'll probably mean to you very soon, is that I believe that the main or the flux capacitor, if you remember the movie Back to the Future, I believe the flux capacitor, the power ingredient in the law of attraction is not just like in the movie, red bicycle, red bicycle. Oh, look, I have a red bicycle. Yeah, that's a part of it. We'll get to that. But I think the really important part of it is the action. So when you act, meaning you're not just imagining, that's important, but when you actually begin the creation, the working, the action process, only then do you begin, with a little bit of time, you begin to create a traction through the action. Then you get to attraction, right? So I want you, once you see it, you can never unsee it. So every time from this moment forward, you look at or think about the law of attraction, I want you to think law of action, traction, attraction. The law of action, I think, is probably a better way to look at it. All right, but you're like, wait, Jeff, you said manifestation. Isn't manifestation this woo-woo thing? Well, for some people it is. And the people that are on the super woo-woo end of the spectrum, usually, well, they're not doing all that well. Now, I'm being the 80%, it seems, if you look online. I see that most of the law of attraction people, not all, of course, not you, but many are out of shape. They eat bad food. They don't take care of themselves. Their relationships are not so great. And I think the reason is because too many people, I don't know the exact percentage, I just like 80-20, but too many people see it as this, I got to close my eyes and visualize and make a vision board and attract these things into my life. Yes, there is a component that happens here inside the imagination. And I believe the imagination is the start of creation. And that action is a key element, because without action, nothing happens. So for example, someone wants a better relationship. They can dream about the relationship all they want, but really, if they don't get out the front door, how's anybody going to meet them? If they don't get online, how's anybody going to know them? So it doesn't have to be online. It could be outside or this format, digital or however. But the important thing, remember, is the action. So let's move on, right? So now we want to go to manifestation. This one is really fascinating. So manifestation, let me go ahead and do a little quick underline there for you. And I want to break it up into 3 parts. And there it is. So now if you look at that again, you'll notice that, if it's going to bring it a little closer there, you'll see where it says man, right? I underlined the first letters, man. Then I underlined I-F-E-S-T or I-Fest. There's Apple, right? Call out to Apple. And then there's the Asian, right? So Asian or the I-O-N. So let's start with that. The I-O-N in manifestation at the end, that's the same I-O-N in attraction. That's the same I-O-N in automation, creation, imagination, innovation. It's the same I-O-N. So what is I-O-N? That suffix. It's action. It's movement, right? Innovation is not just here, but it's changing and doing things out here, right? Creation, yes, we create first here, but we have to do things out in the world, move those little atoms around, move the whatever, the objects. If you want to remodel a house, you can't just imagine it and there it is. If you want a really trim, fit looking body, imagination, yeah, it can help, but you need to get your butt to the gym probably and change what's in your refrigerator and where you go to eat, right? So that's all part of it. All right, so we got that, right? Manifestation, the end part is essentially saying action, right? There's 3 parts to the manifestation. Now, if you go over to here, iPod, iPad, iPhone, the original iMac, right? Apple, when they first came up with that, I probably need to do a little more research on it, but I believe that the original I in iMac was for internet. But I think over time that came to represent so many more things, such as, at least for me, it does, individual, right? The innovation, imagination, and for today, right, the secret ingredient. I think when I see that iPhone now and I think about that I think of ingredient. I think of inner and I think of inside. Now, fest, a festival means a party. So when I think of now that center, right, the I and the fest over here, I think of a party in your head. So a party in your head is my strange way of looking at it as that, oh, this is fun. I'm going to imagine. I'm going to dream. I'm going to, create all this stuff in my head. That's the iFest. That's the party in your head. Awesome stuff, right? Now, the first part of manifestation is man. So when I think of man, I think of when somebody says man up, means do the thing you need to do, be a man, do that thing. But it also, if you think of the word mano is another word. I'm not sure which language that is. Maybe it's Hawaiian, but mano also means hand, right? Or maybe it's mana. I get them mixed up. But in any case, man, you can think of hand. You can think of power. You can think of doing. And yes, you can see that as woman, right? Woman. But the man is in there. So now let's look at that again, manifestation. If the man has to do with doing or power or strength, you have to do that, represent it, right? And the Asian means doing. And the fest or the I fest is this thinking part, the party in your head. Do the math. That's 2 parts action, 1 part imagination. And I think that's where people get this manifestation wrong, is they're doing, I don't know how many letters are in there, I didn't count them, but they're doing 10 parts here. And like, why isn't it working? I'm trying to manifest. I read all the books and, why isn't it working? Because you got the math wrong. So yeah, math's important. So 2 parts action, 1 part I fest, 1 part imagination. That's the secret ingredient. It's right there. Now, I also wrote on here, Ed Milet, right? The power of one more. And also, I'll explain this, the rule of one. So, okay, so now you say, yeah, okay, Jeff, maybe I can buy that. I get that you actually have to do something in action, but it's so hard. I know I need to go live. I know I need to create that video. I know I need to make that call. I know I need to send that email. I know I need to complete that application. I know I need to, whatever, get my butt to the gym, right? Do things differently coming up on the new year. I know, but it's so hard. Habits are hard to break. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't. Be careful about those beliefs. So this is where the last 2 really key ingredients come in right over here. So let's start with the rule of one. The rule of one, to me, now you may have heard the 5-second rule popularized by Mel Robbins. Wonderful rule, and it does not collide. It can link up really nicely. You may have heard of the 5-minute rule, which I've learned it as, if you can do anything for 5 minutes, then likely you're over the inertia. But I went and I did a little split testing. I'm like, okay, that's true. If I do something for 5 minutes, I can likely continue. But what if I lowered it and I said, what if you only did something for 3 minutes? Would that break? Would that get the inertia going and likely to keep going? So I tested it. It worked. Then I said, okay, that worked. What if I just do the rule of 2 minutes? Will that work? I don't know. Is it as good as 5 minutes? Don't know. Let's test it. I tested it. It worked. I'm like, okay, let's lower the bar a little bit more. Can we make this even easier for people that really feel stuck? And I went, 1 minute? And I'm like, okay. So the next time I thought, you need to go to the gym now. It's getting late. They're going to close soon. That kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, but I'm tired. I'm sore. I don't really want to go. I'm like, just go for 1 minute. 1 minute? Just go to the gym for 1 minute? Yeah, that's all 1 minute. Or, you really need to write that book. It's not going to finish itself. You need to sit your butt down and do some editing. You got almost all of it completed. Just need to get some edit done, right? But I don't have the energy. I'm not motivated. Oh, what if you just sit down for 1 minute? It worked. So the idea here is when you're stuck, lower the bar. Now, you've probably heard of Grant Cardone. He's famous for popularizing 10X. He has, I think his book is called 10X, and other people have also talked about 10X, 10Xing, right? There's 2 different things that I've heard is 10X is better than 2X, right? If you do more, then obviously you're going to accomplish more. But then there's a book called, is it 2X? I get them mixed up. 10X is better than 2X, or 10, that's a thinking rule, right? Or 2X is better, or 10X is better. Here's the main point. If you're moving, in other words, you already have some action, you already have some traction, but you feel like you're moving too slow, then I think 10X is a beautiful rule. However, if you're stuck, if you're like, I can't get myself to do the next step, why can't I do that? That's stuck on a plateau, like maybe you're doing something, but you're not going to the next peak, or just like you're not moving at all in a certain area. Then I would say not 10X, I'd say 0.0000010X. Huh? Yeah, not just 10x to 5x to 2x to 1x, but decimal points, like not just a baby step, but what about an ant-sized step? What about a quarter of an ant-sized step? If you're stuck, lower the bar. Yeah, but isn't lowering the bar kind of cheating? Not if it gets you unstuck. If you lower the bar and it allows you to start because it's easy, then it works, right? It makes sense. And I love this little analogy of the hurdle. If I put a hurdle over your head, if you're not a pole vaulter, all right, let's assume that you're an average person. But if that pole vault is overhead high and I say, I want you to jump over that hurdle, I want you to jump over that pole, you're like, whoa, I don't know about that. I haven't jumped that high in a long time, right? Or I'm not even sure if I could, even with a running start. All right, well, what if we lower the hurdle bar and we put it down at shoulder height? How does it feel now? Well, it's still pretty intimidating, I think if there's a mat on the other side, I could run and dive over and then roll onto the mat. For some people, other people will be like, no, I'd probably break something or pull a muscle or whatever. Okay, well, let's lower the bar. What if that bar was set at waist level? Oh, that would be easier. I can start to imagine that. What if the bar was even lower down at knee level? Oh, knee level, I can lift my leg high enough to step over. What if the bar was lowered to ankle level? Ankle level, come on, Jeff, that's silly. Like my kid, my 2-year-old toddler could step over a bar that was set at my ankle level, right? Exactly. Remember this, if you are stuck, meaning you're not making any progress on something, you're plateaued or just not moving at all, lower the bar in order to raise it. So I'm not saying never raise it. I'm saying before you raise it, lower the bar. If you're already moving, then there's very good reason to raise the bar, to force yourself to pull more from yourself, to think a different way, such as that wonderful book. Is it 10x is better than 2x? I think that might be the book. I have to go look at the title. It's a Ben Hardy book. Awesome book. So yes, I'm repeating myself a little bit because I want to burn this on your brain. Most people, they get on and they scroll, they watch quickly, and you forget most of the cool things that are in the video or the actionable things. But if you do only one thing from watching this video, I want you to remember that when you see the word manifestation, it's 2 parts action, 1 part I fest in the middle, right? When you think of law of attraction, I want you to think law of action to get the traction, to get the attraction. When you think of stuck, I want you to think lower the bar just to get moving. Once you're moving and you're okay with that, maybe you can turn that into a bit of a habit, 1 minute, then it's much easier to increment to go up. How much do you go up? Well, there's Ed Milet's book right there, right? Ed Milet's book, The Power of One, or The Power of One More. So that essentially means, okay, you're moving. I did 1 minute. Can you do 1 more minute? Can you raise the bar another inch? Or can you raise it another centimeter? Or can you raise it another millimeter, 1 more millimeter? If the cold plunge scares you, it scared me when I first did it. I put my little finger and I'm like, no way, that's way too cold for this cold wimp. But the question was, can I go in for 1 second? 1 second? I can do it pretty much anything for 1 second, right? People can swat out a flame probably like this and not get burned if they just do it really quick. So 1 second, that's what I love about what I like to call the rule of 1. So there's a rule of 5 and 4, and we talked about that. But the rule of 1 simply means, it can mean many things. Yes, it can mean 1 minute, but it can also mean 1 rep, 1 set. It can also mean 1 moment. So rather than feeling overwhelmed or stressed by trying to win the game, to win the business, to win the year, or, all these big things. It's okay to lower the bar and say, you know what? I only need to win this moment. This moment. If it's a smoker and they want to become a non-smoker, they only have to say, you know what? I'm just going to not do it this moment. And then the next moment, I'm just not going to do it for this moment. Well, okay, there's a little bit more to the smoking thing probably, but you get the idea that this moment, win the moment. I feel lazy, I can't get up. Just win this moment. Get up and do one air squat. One? Just one. One push-up. One anything. One moment, 1 second, 1 minute, just one set if you have a little bit more energy. But that's how you win. That's how you win. Win at life is just one moment at a time, one thing, right? Now, I'm far from perfect. I fail a lot. I have loose ends that still need to get cleaned up. I'm human, and I'm a happy guy. I may be one of the happiest guys I know. Mindset bliss also means happiness, right? So win the moment. Remember that the rule of one, maybe pick up Ed Milet's book, The Power of One More, which is just add another one. And I think it's going to make a massive difference for you. And my belief is that this is how to create manifestation. This is how to attract. This is how to create real magic. Yes, use your mind. Yes, imagine. And then do. Imagine, act. Imagine, act. This and that. Imagine, act. Okay. Always remember, I believe in you. And I believe that you can do anything you set your mind to. You've got this. Mindset Bliss. Until the next time.